John had always lived a quiet life. His small house sat on the edge of the city, far from the busy streets and noise. He preferred the peace that came with the solitude, the kind of quiet that allowed him to think, to reflect, and to forget. For years, John had kept to himself, avoiding the world and its problems. He had lost much in his life, but he never spoke of it. The past was behind him, and he wanted to keep it that way. But one evening, as he sat in his favorite armchair by the window, the stillness of his life was shattered. A knock at the door broke the calm, a sound that seemed out of place in the otherwise peaceful night. John frowned, wondering who could be at his door at this late hour. He rarely had visitors, and when he did, it was usually someone from the neighborhood with a problem or a question. He stood up slowly, stretching his arms as he made his way to the door. The air outside was cool, and the sky above was clear, dotted with stars. It was a beautiful night, the kind that made him forget about everything else. But now there was a disruption, a knock that refused to be ignored. John opened the door, expecting to see a neighbor or perhaps a delivery man. What he saw instead made his heart skip a beat. At his doorstep stood a woman, but she wasn't like anyone he had ever seen before. She was tall, with sharp features and skin that seemed to shimmer under the porch light. Her eyes were a deep shade of green, unlike anything John had ever encountered. And there was something else about her, something that made John uneasy, though he couldn't quite put his finger on it. She wore a long, flowing robe that looked like nothing from this world. It was a dark blue, almost black, with intricate patterns embroidered along the edges. The fabric seemed to shift and change, almost as if it were alive. John stared at her, unsure of what to say. "Can I help you?" he finally asked, his voice trembling slightly. The woman smiled, but it was not a smile of comfort. It was knowing, almost as if she already understood something John didn't. She spoke softly, her voice calm and soothing, but there was an edge to it that made John's stomach tighten. "I came to your door because our daughter wants to see you," she said. John's mind raced. "Daughter? What did she mean by that?" He looked at the woman, then at her eyes, searching for some hint of what she meant. But there was nothing. She was a complete mystery. His pulse quickened. The words she had spoken seemed so simple, but they carried a weight that John couldn't ignore. His thoughts immediately went back to years ago, to a time he had tried to forget, a time when his life had taken a turn that he never saw coming. It had been a strange encounter, something that didn't make sense. He had been working in his yard when a figure appeared in the distance. At first he thought it was a person, but as the figure drew closer, he realized it was something different. It was an alien, or at least that's what John believed. She had been injured, her body bruised and battered, and she had collapsed right in front of him. John had acted without thinking. He had helped her, offered her water and food, and done his best to care for her. He had no idea who or what she was, but the look in her eyes told him that she was in need. She had thanked him with a quiet, soft voice, before disappearing into the night, leaving John to wonder if he had imagined the whole thing. Years had passed since that moment, and John had never seen her again. He had pushed it out of his mind, convinced that it had all been a strange dream, a product of too much solitude and too little sleep. But now, standing before him, was this woman, an alien, no less, saying something about a daughter. John's mind struggled to process the information. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What daughter?" The woman stepped forward, her eyes never leaving his. "Our daughter," she repeated. "The one you helped all those years ago. She wants to see you." John's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Could this be the same child he had helped so long ago? The idea seemed impossible, but something in the woman's eyes told him that this wasn't just some random visit. She knew him, or at least knew of him. "Why now?" John asked, his voice shaky. Why come here after all this time? The woman's expression softened. Because she needs you, she said simply. She's not just any child, and she's not alone. John felt a chill run down his spine. He didn't know what to believe, but he knew one thing for sure. This was no ordinary visit. The woman's words hung in the air like a puzzle that John couldn't quite solve, and deep down, he knew that his life was about to change forever. I don't understand, John stammered. Why me? The woman smiled again, this time a little less mysterious. You were there for her when no one else was, and now she needs you again. John took a step back, his mind racing. This couldn't be real. It just couldn't be. But the woman's presence, the intensity in her voice, the way she spoke as though this was fate, it was all too real to ignore. He glanced over his shoulder toward the empty house behind him. What was he doing?
What was this all about? Come with me, the woman said, her voice firm yet gentle.
We can explain everything, but we must leave now. John hesitated. His life had been quiet, predictable. He had kept himself hidden from the world for so long, but now everything was shifting. His past was catching up to him, and there was no escaping it. He turned back to face the woman, looking at her as though he were seeing her for the first time. I'm not sure I'm ready for this, he said, the uncertainty in his voice clear. The woman's gaze softened, and she placed a hand on his arm. You don't have to be ready, she said quietly, but you are needed. For a moment, John stood frozen, unsure of what to do. But then, something deep inside him stirred. He had always felt like he was meant for something more, something beyond his quiet life. Maybe this was it. With a deep breath, he nodded. All right, he said. I'll go with you. The woman smiled, and without another word, she turned and walked toward the ship that was waiting just beyond his yard. John followed her, the weight of the decision settling in his chest. As they walked toward the unknown, John couldn't help but wonder what awaited him. What had happened to the child he had helped all those years ago, and what role did he play in whatever was about to unfold? The door to a new chapter in his life had just opened, and there was no turning back. John followed the woman, who introduced herself as Zara, across the yard and toward the strange ship waiting in the distance. It stood there, unlike anything he had ever seen before. The ship was sleek, silver, and almost organic in appearance, as though it had grown from the ground rather than been constructed. Its curves were smooth and graceful, and it shimmered under the moonlight, as though it was alive. The light from the house cast long shadows across the ground, but John's eyes were fixed on the ship. Every step he took brought a new wave of uncertainty. His mind raced with questions, each one more confusing than the last. What was going on? Why had this woman come to him? Who was this daughter she spoke of? And how was he connected to her? Zara led him to the ship's open hatch, which silently slid open as they approached. John hesitated for a moment, looking back at his house. His peaceful, quiet life was slipping away with every step he took, and a sense of dread began to fill him. He had lived alone for so long, never needing anyone. He had kept to himself, avoiding anything that could pull him out of the bubble of his own world. Now, everything had changed. But there was something about Zara's calm demeanor, something about her confidence, that made him follow her. She wasn't asking for anything. She wasn't forcing him. She had simply come to him with a message, and it was one that he couldn't ignore. Come, Zara said, turning to look at him. Her green eyes were soft, but they carried an unspoken weight, as if they had seen much more than any human could imagine. John nodded, taking a deep breath as he stepped onto the ship. The interior was even stranger than the outside. It was vast and open, with curved walls that seemed to pulse with a faint, bioluminescent light. The air inside smelled fresh, almost like a forest after rain, and the temperature was perfect. It was as if the ship had been designed with the utmost care to make anyone feel at ease. As they moved deeper into the ship, John noticed a strange humming sound, almost like the heartbeat of the vessel itself. It was a comforting sound, but it also made him feel small, insignificant, in the grand scheme of things. It reminded him that he was no longer in control of his life, that something far larger than himself was at play. They reached a large, circular room. At the center of the room sat a young girl, no older than 10, with pale skin and large eyes that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly light. Her long hair was a shade of silver, almost white, and it cascaded around her shoulders like a veil. She wore a simple tunic, and though she looked like a child, there was something about her that seemed ancient, as if she carried the weight of centuries within her. John stopped in his tracks. This was the daughter Zara had spoken of, the one who had come to see him. The girl looked up at him, her eyes wide and curious, but there was something deeper there, something that John couldn't quite grasp. It was as if she knew him, as if she had always known him. "I remember you," the girl said softly, her voice like a whisper, but it filled the room. "I remember when you helped me." John's heart skipped a beat. He had never seen this child before, yet she spoke as if they shared a history. How could that be possible? He had never known any alien child, let alone one who remembered him. Zara stepped forward, her expression serious.
Her name is Elia.
She is our daughter, but she is unlike any child you've ever seen. Her abilities are beyond anything you can imagine.
And she has come to you because she needs your help. John stood frozen. The pieces of the puzzle were still too scattered, and he couldn't see the full picture. "Help?" he repeated, his voice shaky. "What kind of help? I don't even know who she is." Zara's gaze softened, and she placed a hand on Elia's shoulder. "She's not just any child," Zara explained. "Elia has a gift, a connection to humanity that no one else can understand. You are the key to her future, John. Without you, she cannot reach her full potential." John's head spun. The words were too much to process. He had been living a quiet, simple life, and now, somehow, he was supposed to help an alien child. He wasn't anyone special. He was just a man who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. "What do you mean?" "I'm the key," he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "How could I help her?" Elia smiled at him, a soft, almost sad smile. "You helped me once, long ago. Do you remember?" John's mind raced back, trying to recall anything that might connect him to this child. But nothing came to mind. He had helped people before, but no one like this. No alien child. No one who could look at him and speak as if they shared some deep, unspoken bond. Zara stepped in to explain. "You don't remember, but it's true. Many years ago, when you helped her, you formed a bond. A bond that connected you both in ways that were beyond your understanding." "Elia is special, John. She is the future, and the future of humanity is intertwined with hers." John took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing thoughts. "Why didn't you just come to me sooner? Why wait until now?" Zara's eyes darkened, and for a moment, John saw something in them. A flash of concern, of fear, because the time wasn't right. The factions were not ready, but now the danger is closer than ever. Elia's power is growing, and there are those who want to control it. "They will stop at nothing to use her for their own ends. We need you to help her, to protect her." John looked down at Elia, who was still staring at him with those strange, shimmering eyes. He didn't understand any of this. How could he help her? He was just an ordinary man. But there was something in the way she looked at him, something that made him feel like maybe, just maybe, he had a part to play in this strange new world. "Why me?" he asked again, his voice full of doubt. "What do I have to offer?" Elia reached out to him, her small hand trembling slightly as she took his. Because you care, she said quietly.
You cared for me once, and I know you will care again. That is the key.
John stared at her hand in his, her touch warm and comforting. He had always been a loner, always kept his distance from others. But this felt different. The pull of it, the need to protect, was overwhelming. Please, Zara said, her voice low. The universe is at stake. The power she holds could either save or destroy us all. You are the one who can help her find her true path. John stood in silence for a long moment, staring at Elia's innocent face, her eyes filled with hope. He had no idea what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't turn away now.
All right,
He said finally, his voice steady.
I'll help her.
Zara's expression softened, and she nodded. Thank you. You don't know what this means. As John looked at Elia, he saw something in her eyes, something that made him believe that, somehow, he had made the right choice. The weight of it was heavy, but there was no turning back now. He had a new purpose, a new mission, and it all started with this child who had come to him, who needed him more than he could understand.